Lavrov stresses the importance of holding an international conference on Syria soon to find a political solution to the crisis. Iran says Saudi Arabia is a partner in the crimes committed by the armed terrorist groups in Syria, as Germany warns against sending more weapons. The Syrian Arab army continues to chase terrorists in Latakia, Aleppo and Damascus, killing large numbers of them. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Irado Krikorian with the news in English. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has affirmed the need to speed up the convention of the International Conference on Syria in Geneva. In a telephone call, Lavrov briefed his Turkish counterpart Ahmed Dawood on the results of the talks during the tripartite meeting that combined the representatives of Russia, the USA and the UN held in Geneva on the 25th of this month in preparation for the International Conference on Syria. Lavrov underlined the need of calling for the convention of such conference, which would contribute to a political settlement to the crisis in Syria as soon as possible. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Araqchi has said that Saudi Arabia has turned into an accomplice to the terrorist crimes committed against the Syrians after providing the terrorists in Syria with all kinds of light and heavy weapons. In reply to the statements of the Saudi Foreign Minister Saud al-Faisal, in which he alleged the presence of an Iranian intervention in Syria, Araqchi said there were no Iranian troops on Syrian territories and that Faisal's statements were full of discrepancies. Araqchi pointed out that the allegations of Tehran's interference in Syria were raised at a time when Saudi Arabia was militarily and openly intervening in Bahrain, thus violating international laws and agreements. The Iranian Foreign Ministry's spokesman expressed hope that Iran's efforts to solve the crisis would be met with Saudi cooperation in this respect to contribute to a peaceful solution and end the crisis in Syria. German Chancellor Angela Merkel today warned against dispatching weapons to the armed terrorist groups in Syria. Addressing the German parliament, the Bundestag, Merkel said that such step involved countless dangers. Germany had declared on the 14th of this month its decision not to send weapons to the armed groups in Syria and called for the convention of an international conference to solve the crisis. Germany was also reserved concerning a draft resolution presented by Britain and France recently within the framework of the European Union to lift the embargo imposed on military supplies to the armed groups in Syria. During the pursuit of gunmen in Barza neighborhood, our army units found a workshop to manufacture explosive devices and a 30-meter-long tunnel used by the terrorists to hide and store weapons and ammunition. Meanwhile, an army unit destroyed a terrorist gathering in Al-Qaboon neighborhood that contained weapons, ammunition and terrorists. In Jobar, the army units chased gunmen along Al-Manashir Square, killing a number of terrorists and injuring others. The armed forces clashed with terrorists who tried to attack military checkpoints in the areas of Jassim, Tafas and Al-Mukhayyam in Daraa countryside. The terrorists' hideouts were destroyed in Tafas and scores of terrorists. An army unit clashed with an armed terrorist group that was committing murder and looting acts in Al-Mukhayyam, killing and injuring scores of the terrorists and destroying their weaponry and ammunition. Another army unit clashed with terrorists who tried to attack military checkpoints near Jassim National Hospital, killing and injuring many of them. In Latakia northern suburbs, our army units carried out a series of operations against terrorist hideouts, eliminating several members of them and destroying a number of missiles and mortar gun. The army units also destroyed Jabhat al-Nusra terrorist gathering in Katf al-Rumman and Al-Furulluq Protectorate, killing a large number of terrorists of foreign nationalities. Several gunmen of Jabhat al-Nusra were also killed or wounded in Al-Rabia and Al-Shuruq villages, including Chechenian Omar al-Dakhil, the Saudi Uthman al-Zamili and Abdul Rahim al-Bahraini. A terrorist group targeted a gas factory in the Idlib with 3 mortar shells, damaging its basic cyclical tank. The attack caused the facility to get out of work, in addition to heavy material damages estimated at a cost of millions of Syrian pounds, which inflicted the factory's different sections. On Latakia Ariha Road, army units chased an armed terrorist group, eliminating its members and dismantled a number of explosive devices planted along the highway. In Aleppo, an army unit in cooperation with local residents discovered a number of tunnels leading to As-Sulaymaniya and As-Sayyid Ali areas. An official source reported that residents informed the competent authorities of strange sounds heard after midnight. The authorities immediately checked up the scene and discovered tunnels in Al-Wakiliya and Al-Hazzaza regions. The Iraqi army has taken control of a desert pocket used by terrorists as a path to smuggle weapons, mercenaries and commodities between the governorate of Deir ez-Zor and the Iraqi Al-Qaim border district. The Iraqi army also foiled an armed attack launched by Al-Qaeda and Jabhat al-Nusra groups at a military barrack on the highway between Syria and Iraq in Rawak province, destroying 5 vehicles, eliminating 7 terrorists and capturing 8 others. A source at Al Jazeera and Al-Badiya Operations Command has disclosed the dismantling of a terrorist network to recruit unemployed young men from Al-Qaim region to be involved in terrorist acts in Syria and Iraq. Meanwhile, the Central Euphrates Operations Command in the Iraqi army has announced capturing 42 terrorists, seizing large quantities of ammunition and equipment, and dismantling 11 explosives in a provocative process in Karbala. Welcome back. In occupied Palestine, Israeli occupation troops conducted a wide-scale arrest campaign in different parts of the West Bank, which led to violent confrontations in Jenin between the Palestinians and the Israeli soldiers who used tear gas against the Palestinian citizens, causing several suffocation cases. In the city of Nablus, Israeli soldiers clashed with Palestinian residents, during which they arrested a number of citizens. Opponents of Muslim Brotherhood's rule, mainly nationalist, secular and liberal groups, are calling for President Morsi to step down. They argue he has lost legitimacy and divided the country while worsening the daily lives of ordinary Egyptians. The spokesman for the Egyptian June 30th Front, a newly formed coalition of opposition groups, said peaceful protests are needed to fulfill the goals of the revolution and rejected any attempts to terrorize the Egyptian people by the government or its allies. He warned against any attempt to lead the country into chaos. The movement began with a petition drive by the rebel campaign to show a lack of confidence in Morsi. Members say they have the signature of more than 15 million, exceeding the number of votes cast for Morsi last year. Protests were renewed in Ankara and Istanbul in Turkey today to protest the release of a policeman accused of killing a demonstrator. The police used tear gas to disperse the protesters against Erdogan's government in Ankara. A Turkish court had decided to release policeman Etim Sarisolol, aged 26, for having caused a demonstrator to be killed on the 1st of this month when he shot him in the head. Now to latest business and market news, but after a short break.